Hey, we are SophandCole, a Kiwi, a Brit, and a little adventurer named Sunny. Join us as we transform our suburban house in Kent, United Kingdom, into a country cozy family home. Over the last few weeks, we've knocked out a wall to create an open kitchen, dining, and living area. The tiles came up, and with absolutely no tiling experience, I'm going to attempt to lay 30 meters of 22 mm thick limestone tile. If you want to see how I remove the tiles, check out our last video. Otherwise, let's see if I can get this done. I did mention in my last video that we were allowing £500 to £800 for the extra bits and pieces that I would need to lay the tiles. Now we spent, I think it was $320, so it wasn't too bad. And I'm pretty sure I got everything I need, but you never know. And I've also worked out that there are a couple of things that I probably don't need, so I'll be able to send back for a refund. So that's actually looking pretty good. That's a lot less than I had initially anticipated. This is the 9-inch angle grinder that I've got, and this is the blade. Both of these were recommended by the tile company. The guy was super helpful, told me sort of what I needed to do, said it would be quite manageable doing it my first time. And obviously limestone tiles, they're a bit rough, so they're quite forgiving when you lay them down if they're not absolutely perfect. But that's the setup that he recommended. I think the grinder was about £85 and this was 60, so obviously quite a good blade. And I do think that if you're going to be spending your money, don't worry so much on the tool, but more on the actual thing that's going to be cutting the tile. So hopefully that'll work out for me. And I went with 5mm spacers, just because the tiles are a little bit bigger. The only option I think I saw on the line was 3 and 5mm. And everything I got came from Screwfix, which is in the UK. A few other bits in there, but as I use bits and pieces, I'll talk you through it. The tiles have arrived. So I've got 2 pallets with the tiles, and then this is the grout and everything on this one. So I'm just going to open it all up, check it's all there, and I'm probably going to take all of this inside just because we're right on the road and you just don't know. You don't know who's lurking. Okay, so the tiles are here. They are massive and extremely heavy, much heavier than I anticipated, but I will slowly get them in one by one. But before I do that, I'm going to prime the floor. So I'm using this Rocketex acrylic primer. This, on a porous substrate like this one, you dilute it, 1 part primer, 1 part water, and I'm going to do 2 coats on here. So I've done 1 coat on this section that I'm sitting on, so I'm about to do the second coat. You've got to let them dry in between. So I'll get this onto the floor, and then once that's dry, we can start laying down some adhesive and putting some tiles on. So I'm just applying it using a paint roller. Goes on nice and easy. Just a really thin coat, doesn't need a whole lot, so it does go quite a way. And obviously, before you do this, you want to make sure the floor is well swept, maybe vaxed, make sure there's no dust and debris on there. I've got 1 5-litre container of the primer, and that should be enough, or more than enough, to do the whole floor, so the dining, kitchen and the living area in the middle. But I'll let you know exactly how much product I use for the whole job once I'm finished. Alrighty, so it's now my first attempt at mixing some adhesive. I'm using Rocketex Semi-Rapid Fiberflex White, and that was what was recommended and supplied by the tile shop. So about 5 litres of water in that bucket. I'm just following word for word what's on the instructions. I feel like that's the best way forward. So I'm hoping that's roughly the right consistency. I think I might add it a little more gradually next time, but first bag was bound to be a bit of a practice run. So let's see if we can get a tile down. seems pretty level. But what I have seen on YouTube is people like they drag the tile back and forth to kind of get the ridges to collapse, but this tile is so big and heavy it's really not moving. But also one thing I didn't show you, I back butted the tile, so I just put a skim layer of the adhesive on the back. I'll show you that shortly. That one was quite a big one, and obviously my first tile, so I was a bit nervous, so I didn't film it, but I'll show you that in the next one. Okay, so I've laid the first few. I just had to kind of focus and do it rather than worry about filming because it was a little bit stressful, but I think I've got the hang of it now. I was trying to use these pathetic little things, but it's probably easier for me just to eyeball it really. And because the stone is so heavy, I can't really place them exactly how I'd like. I sort of lay them down and jiggle them around a little bit. But as you can see, they're so rugged on the edges, which we love, the character, but it kind of means that as they go down, they're not going to be super straight anyway. But loving how they look so far. I've just wet them down because I've got a little bit of adhesive on top just with handling them, so just wipe that off before it sets. And now I've just come to my first corner. Fortunately, this tile is the perfect length to fit into this slot here, but there's that column down the middle, so I'm just going to have to cut. It'll be my first cut as well, which is a corner cut, which isn't great, but fine. So I'll just cut here and then along here. So let's give that a go. Sorry if the audio is bad. I'm outside and it's a little bit windy today. So basically drew in the measurement, making sure that I cut inside the line. So the piece that I'm discarding is this piece, so I'm cutting into this rather than into the tile because otherwise it'll be V out. My first cut went alright, so I'm now going to come in and cut this one. I think it's okay. This thing's really heavy, but otherwise it cuts really well. Because of the curvature of the blade, obviously, because it's a circle, I couldn't get right in here very easily. So I think I'll just have to use a chisel if that becomes an issue. But there should only be a few cuts like this, otherwise they'll be straight, touch wood, pretty simple. So my last mix didn't last very long, it definitely didn't last 2 hours, so I think I didn't add enough water and it wasn't combining. Anyhow, this time I put the water in and then I gradually added the cement or the adhesive, and I've got a nice buttery texture now, so I think that'll be much easier to work with and hopefully I'll get closer to the 2 hours. So time to butter up this tile and put it into its home. They're obviously really dirty at the moment, and when the seal is on it, they'll really pop. But yeah, they're awesome. Beautiful colours. I'm really excited. They kind of look a little bit like outdoor tiles at the moment, but as you can see, once they have a sealer, they've got like a beautiful kind of transparent, really smooth, bumpy but smooth surface. And there's just such cool colours in there. It's just a wide view of what I've done so far. Alright, I've come to a bit of a tricky spot. So I need to cut the stone so it'll go around this column here. But basically the measurement down the end is slightly shorter than here. So it's about 1 centimetre, so the difference is 1 centimetre. So I have to make sure that this measurement is slightly longer by about 10 mil than this end. And then it needs to wrap around that column there. So I don't know, hopefully I've done my calculations correctly, but we'll see. And I'm also not sure how I'm gonna maneuver the cut. I think I'm gonna start on this side, because if I stuff that up, at least then I've still got a large piece of tile to work with. But if I go in here and cut this incorrectly, then it sort of bugs that up. So I don't know, I'm just gonna try. Wish me luck. It fits perfectly, it looks really good, but one thing that is really going to bug me is that it's pretty much in line with this tile next to it, which is kind of what you want to avoid. Hopefully it's not too noticeable once it's all in. I mean, I know it's there, and now you know it's there. But I don't think anyone walking in will be like, wow, look at that. They're perfectly lined up. So that's a shame, but look, I'm pretty happy with that otherwise. So I just laid it down with the adhesive and had a little mishap. I put some weight on there and that snapped off. So I'm sort of debating what to do. I think I'm actually just going to leave it there. So obviously the skirting is going to come out quite a way, and then I'll just use some grout in here, like as it would be a normal tile, and then just cut another small piece for along there. If I take this out, I'm basically going to have to cut a 70 centimetre tile, just the edge off, which seems like a waste of a tile. So yeah, I think I'm just going to leave it. We're putting a shelving unit here anyway, but yeah, I'm just going to think about that for a little bit. So I'm now just applying the sealant. This is actually the second coat. I did a coat earlier this morning. It's super simple, just a wash over. You want to make sure the whole stone gets a really good coating, but you also don't want it soaked either. And obviously just make sure the floor is nice and clean, so I gave it a good clean. And I apply it with this sponge. And I'll just show you here on the stone. So yeah, just making sure the stone's fully covered. I'm going to do 3 coats, so I'll do another coat later on tonight. Tomorrow I'll do the grout, and then about a day later I'll do another layer of the sealer. I think it takes about 3 days before it's fully working. But you can see it just makes it, hasn't sort of changed the colour, it just keeps it nice and matte, which is good. You don't want to gloss. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So I'll carry on with the rest. Alrighty, I'm now about to move on to this part of the floor. So because this isn't as porous as that substrate, I'm going to use the same primer, but I'm not going to dilute it this time. So for that side it was 1 part primer, 1 part water. For this I'm just going to do primer. So I'm going to get onto that. I've given it a good sweep and vacuum so it's nice and, well, it doesn't look clean, but it's pretty much dust free. So yeah, I'm going to get onto that now, and then we can get tiling once that's dry. I'm going to end this video here, folks. Apologies you had to put up with me for the entirety of this video. I promise Soph and Sunny will be very much present in the next one. You'll also see the grouting, some decorating, and there's a very good chance I'll get the dining nook underway. We are loving these tiles and are so very pleased with our choice. The colours and textures are giving us all those country cozy vibes. Please hit like if you enjoyed this video and be sure to subscribe for future videos. Thanks for watching, have a fab weekend, and we'll see you next week.